The Blaine House, with its antiquities, its historical treasures, and the reminders of earlier residents, is a quiet reminder of the traditions, values, and history which any Maine governor must respect. Governor Joseph E. Brennan. The Blaine House belongs to the people of Maine. It sits directly across from the state capitol in Augusta. It serves not only as the residence for governors and their families during their term in office, but as a symbol of leadership, heritage, and a place where citizens are encouraged to visit. Like many Maine homes, the house has undergone a number of renovations throughout its history. It serves as a tribute to the state's architectural development and possesses elements of federal architecture, Italianate, and colonial revival style. The land of the Blaine House was originally surveyed in 1761, and after a number of transfers, a lot was sold to Captain James Hall in 1830. By 1833, Captain Hall had constructed a substantial mansion house. Shortly after the completion, Hall added an ell to the structure. Captain Hall's son later inherited the home and gave it to his mother in 1843. The house was sold to Greenwood Child 7 years later. In 1862, the heirs of Mr. Child sold the house to Harriet Stanwood Blaine for $5,000, money provided by her husband James as a birthday present. Over the next decade, the house would be enlarged to accommodate Blaine's growing family and his increasing political influence. James and Harriet Blaine had moved to Augusta, Maine from Philadelphia in 1854. James became part owner and editor of the Kennebec Journal newspaper and enlisted in the new Republican Party. Blaine served as Speaker of the Maine House of Representatives and won a congressional seat in 1862, the same year in which the house was purchased. During his ownership of the house, Blaine built upon Captain Hall's ell and constructed a study and an octagonal billiard room. Over time, the sitting room was incorporated into the dining room to make it larger. The parlors and the conservatory were combined to make a large living room, and an area flanking the porch was filled in to create an open veranda. During the winter months, Blaine and his family lived in Washington. In the summer months, the house would be full of children running through the halls, playing tennis on the lawn, or picnicking by the garden. Starting in the mid-1870s, the building was used more and more as the center for Maine's Republican Party. Known both as the Plumed Knight of the Republican Party and the Continental Liar from the state of Maine, Blaine used the house to plan campaign strategy, raise money, and attract out-of-state support. Blaine served his state and country as a U.S. Representative, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, and U.S. Senator. He was Secretary of State for James A. Garfield, Chester A. Arthur, and Benjamin Harrison. He was nominated for president in 1884, but lost the race to Grover Cleveland. James Blaine died January 15, 1893. Harriet Blaine passed away in 1903, after which the home served as an intermittent residence for the Blaine children and was rented to tenants. Governor John F. Hill was a tenant of the Blaine House while his $250,000 mansion at the corner of State and Green Streets was being constructed. The idea was that the Hill family would live in the new house and then leave it to the state for the governor's mansion. However, the Blaine House was given to the state well before Mrs. Hill's death. In March of 1917, just before the house became the governor's mansion, Blaine's grandson, Walker Beale, offered Governor Milliken its use as headquarters for the Maine Committee of Public Safety. Milliken added telephones and electric lighting, and rooms were converted into offices. The house became the center for the 100-member committee, serving as the focal point for Maine's World War I effort. Walker Blaine Beale died in battle in 1918, and the house was gifted to the state. In her letter to the governor, Mrs. Beale wrote, "I deliver to you for the state with this letter the deed in trust of my father's home in memory of my son, Walker Blaine Beale. I would like the privilege of placing in the near future, at my own expense, in an appropriate place in the front hall, a bronze plaque with the inscription, 'This house and the land on which it stands was the home of James G. Blaine, and was given to the state of Maine in the name of his grandson, Walker Blaine Beale, 1st Lieutenant, 310th Infantry, 78th Division, who was born here March 22, 1896, and who fell in France in the Saint Mihiel Drive, September 18, 1918. Milliken implemented a mandate to preserve the character of the building and persuaded the state to purchase bordering lands to create a contiguous property. The Milliken renovations also included designing the interior with a predominance of blue and gold, the state colors, with the reception room in green and silver to symbolize the trees, lakes, and streams of the state. Portland architect John Calvin Stevens was hired to refine the residence into a fitting memorial executive mansion, which included adding a service wing on the northwest side. The Olmsted brothers of Brookline, Massachusetts, were hired to design the grounds and build a New England garden. Each gubernatorial family has offered some redecorating to the house, but relatively few changes have been made over time. The house remains a testament to its origins of being the home of the Blaine family, with a few notable exceptions, like the bomb shelter that was added in 1954 by Governor Cross. Repairs initiated in Governor Muskie's incumbency, 1955 to 1959, included refurbishing the roof, repairing the walls and floors, updating the plumbing and fixtures, and installing a sprinkler system. In 1987, efforts to restore and preserve the house interior were initiated. These efforts have been carried on by subsequent governors. To assist these efforts, a Friends group was formed to promote the care and maintenance of the house and grounds. This legacy continues today through the Friends of the Blaine House organization. The Blaine House has served as a place where visiting celebrities and politicians have been hosted while in Maine. Memorable Blaine House guests include General John J. Pershing, who led the American Expeditionary Forces in World War I. He was promoted to the highest rank ever held in the United States Army, General of the Armies. Governor Calvin Coolidge visited the Blaine House before he became 30th President of the United States. Jack Dempsey, heavyweight champion from 1919 to 1926, and one of the most popular boxers in history. Aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart, Eleanor Roosevelt, Harry Truman, and John F. Kennedy, who gave a press conference in the Blaine Sunroom in 1959. The Blaine House was designated a National Historic Landmark by the Secretary of the Interior in 1964 and continues to be a place that welcomes guests from near and far. Harriet Blaine was a consummate host, and her legacy continues through the traditions of the house. The Blaine House entertains morning coffee and afternoon tea gatherings. Any nonprofit organization in the state can take part in these, from celebrating poets to recognizing senior groups, honoring service personnel, and paying tribute to social organizations. The house also has a special relationship with schools, and all Maine 4th grade students are invited to tour the house as part of their state history studies. The Blaine House is a place where citizens of Maine are welcome and can be recognized by the first family. There are, of course, formal dinner parties and events restricted to important national and international guests, but the house is a center of activity and hospitality for all. Maine is ever grateful for this special gift.